let's get ready for some more. To introduce myself, my name is Shane Hillier. I'm the Executive General Manager of Client Services at Apenex, and I'm really thrilled to be here to step you through the next sessions. So I think let's jump straight in to our first panel. The topic is leveraging data analytics to deliver more efficient and profitable projects. I'm going to hand over to my colleague, Phil Lamassine, who's a Commercial Manager for Connected Cost, and he will host this panel. So Phil, I'll let you introduce the parties.
Thank you. Thanks, Jamie. So we've got a great panel today. Just by way of introductions, and thanks, great to see so many of you coming along to today's panel. So as Jamie mentioned, I'm the Commercial Manager for Connected Cost across ANZ. We have Jeremy Pidcock, Commercial Manager for Growth Build. Jeremy, thank you. Alex Jeffrey, Director for one of our sponsors today, Trident. Phil Edwards, Technology Program Manager for Build. Kerry Shotton, Enterprise Systems Manager for Rob. And Craig Watkins, who's Technical Systems Manager for Hinkley. So fantastic panel and a really diverse group of people. So the topic is leveraging data analytics for delivering profitable projects. One of the things that always comes to mind, given the exponential growth there's been in digitisation and the volume of data we're collecting in construction, is this really commonly used and really almost sort of overly shared cartoon on LinkedIn. And it really brings to mind for me a number of the challenges but the opportunities as well that exist from taking advantage of the huge amounts of data that we're collecting, but also the difficulties that we may have in actually making use of that data and changing the way we work. So it's great that we're joined by the panel today. Just a bit of housekeeping. We're just going to run the panel for the first sort of 35 to 40 minutes. And then at the end of the session, there'll be time for questions from the audience. So if you just hold your questions until then, that'd be great. So, but just to get things started, I'd like to get a sense of where the panel sort of feels the industry is right now, in terms of leveraging data analytics and changes we've seen put in place to date. So maybe starting off with you, Jeremy. What does data analytics sort of mean to you and your company, and can you think of any sort of outcomes that you're seeing currently, or trends that Growth Build's more broadly in the industry?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Thank you, Phil. I think as an industry we're getting better at data analytics. There's no doubt about it. There's been a lot of data around for a long time that we haven't harvested particularly well. We're not particularly good at understanding what it means. We're not particularly good at understanding how clean it is when it comes out, and probably more so at how we actually treat that data, how we interpret it moving forward. Now, traditionally we've done very well in the space of commercial management as far as numbers go, because they're so definite, they're so clean as far as project costs go, forecasting of costs based on data trends, and overspend on particular packages and trends, and analytics, simple analytics around that. We do actually I'd say a pretty good job in that space, but in the other spheres as far as WH&S, quality, all the other areas that are as important, we are really, I see, evolving in that area. And I think the key is that we've been very good on doing lag data and lag indicators. And the lead stuff is the really tough stuff and the real-time stuff that we really need to get better at. We need to get better at harnessing where the lead stuff's coming from. And there's a little bit of interpretation around human nature in the lead stuff as well that we need to harness as well. But from a commercial perspective, we've done well. We can do better in other areas, there's no doubt about it.
Thanks, Jeremy. Craig, I might just get you to maybe pick up on that trend that Jeremy was mentioning, just in terms of lead analytics, in terms of looking towards the future and using the past to guide where we're going to be, both in terms of commercial and maybe other areas. Your perspectives?
Yeah, no, so I totally agree there with what we're saying. So our construction industry is very much a reactive workforce at the moment. We're data rich, but we're not managing or using that information very well to actually look to the future. One of the reasons behind that is that we, if we're collecting data, we don't actually look backwards to actually try and piece the pieces of the puzzle together, connect the dots, and actually being able to use that to intelligently look forward to give us some predictions about where things are going. So the data's telling us a story, but we're not in the position at the moment to be able to interpret what that story is in a lot of ways. And it's really about us sitting down, looking at the data we're collecting, how is that data related to each other, and then being able to visualize that to give our workforce the best opportunity to, well, basically crystal ball gaze, but with a bit of an instruction booklet, if you know what I mean. The data's there, we're getting better at collecting it. We now need to be better at connecting the dots, and then we need to be able to effectively demonstrate that information in a way that we can easily understand it, whether it's a graphical form or whether it's just numbers on a page, and show that the trending information is going in a certain direction and make that message very clear. And we need to do that from leveraging the experience that the data is showing us.
Thanks, Craig. So a question perhaps for Phil, but also happy for anyone from the panel to pick it up. I'd be interested in perspectives around how data analytics is perceived from the very highest echelons of an organisation, particularly insofar as it always requires a level of investment in terms of time, change and competing priorities, and how important it is to get that buy-in.
Yeah, so you mentioned earlier about numbers, and how we're rich in data numbers because I guess every organisation has to manage its financials, and so all organisations invest a lot of time and money in capturing financial data, otherwise they can't survive. But I think where it's difficult is we've got lots of back office data, if you like, but getting that field data is where things can get a little bit tricky, and that's where we need to start investing and being innovative and smart in getting that data. So I noticed your slide there, it kind of implies that people aren't interested in capturing that data, but I think they are. In my experience, out in project land, people are very interested in cooperating and understanding how technology can help and how we can capture more data, but it's got to be easy for them. And so we need to find ways and fund ways in which we can provide solutions for people on site, the guys actually building buildings, to capture data without it becoming a burden. And I think that's where things get a little bit tricky, and that's why we're poor on data. I don't think it's because people don't care about it, it's just that they've got other things to do, so we've got to find and fund ways of making it easy for them to do and part of their normal daily routine.
So Alec, sort of ask you, just in terms of what you see in the market and the extent to which you see or the importance of executive level buying into investing in the area of data analytics.
Sure. Look, in our work, we work with the construction industry and across many industries, and what we find, we tend to see three characteristics being displayed in an organisation. There's the first level, and that's the skeptics. These are the guys that don't believe in data analytics, they don't believe the world needs to change, and they will defend their position, quite vigorously, and even to the point they might even want to unravel certain things that are being initiated. So the skeptics is certainly something you've got to deal with. The other side is those that we would call them, they want to chase the shiny ball. So it's a new thing, let's just get it going, and we run with that. And of course the danger with that is that there's no structured kind of process behind it. So there might be an outcome, and when people don't believe in the outcome, or it really hasn't got any, I guess, validity to what they're trying to do. And then there's a third group of people that kind of want it, believe it, but don't know how to sell it inside the organisation. And so they're lacking that method of how do I do this, how do I take it to the executive and promote the idea. So there's no doubt there's overwhelming evidence to say data analytics is making a difference and we should be embracing it. It's not that easy. You need to start somewhere. So it's all about starting small with a small project, doing the business case behind it, and then working with it quite quickly. It's quick wins. I mean, I know last year there was the failed fast process about analytics. I think it is that, it's fully in play, but I think you need to build on that, and it's kind of this, almost an inkjet printer, do it way by way, then you build up that, and until it eventually becomes a sustainable culture in your business.
Thanks, Kerry, a question for you. I'd be particularly keen, maybe going back to one of the questions before, of what data analytics means more broadly within Lang O'Rourke. Maybe hand on some examples of what we're doing currently and some of the challenges and opportunities you see.
Yeah, so we've been building cubes and information for quite some time within IT. We concentrated on people data initially. We knew that we'd get quite a bit of leverage there and really focused on how we could save processing time within the HR and finance spaces. And we've really seen the traction in the last sort of year or so. We've now got the board have sat up and gone, okay, this is really powerful, what they're doing. And now the rest of the business, now they're seeing dashboards of their areas and cubes of their areas, and we can see how they can extract the data. It's really made quite a difference, and we've got people hounding and pounding at the door, wanting information for all of their different areas. We've concentrated, certainly we've saved for HR, for the equality reporting for WIGA. It used to take us 2 weeks to do, for somebody to do. It now takes a day. Emissions reporting as well, that was another big one for the compliance of the government. The data quality that was in our ERP system, and the amount of time it used to take to cleanse with people reporting it in the wrong way or doing data entry in the wrong way, and excluding certain commodity codes, etc. for the reporting. It saved a phenomenal amount of time, and those horrendous penalties that go with not submitting that type of data in time. So it's been really positive in that sense. But now we've been working in the background to try and get the APIs and some of the data integration with more of the site tools. So hopefully we can start to go out to the projects and really start to deliver some of the same wins for them.
So maybe a question just for the panel. One of the things I certainly see in my role, and I think we see more broadly, is often data analytics is thought of as a back office function only. So something that IT or technology program managers administer and maybe deliver up to the reports, but the outcomes don't often end up hitting the coalface. I'd be interested in your perspectives on what measures might be taken to show maybe the execution teams, the project teams, the benefit of data, because some of the projects that require them to do certain activities might benefit from being more outcome orientated.
I think that's a difficult one for project teams because I guess they're busy constructing stuff. But just something that Kerry mentioned before about building something and people seeing it and then getting excited. I think it's often difficult for people to visualise what it is that they want. They know there's this big lake of data, but they don't really know what they can do with it and so on. An example that we had recently was somebody was showing us some dashboards based on our CRM system. And it's probably the most sort of advanced dashboard stuff that we had in the organisation. And everybody got really excited about it and thought, wow, that's fantastic, we could do that. Why don't we do that with this data and that data? And then you kind of start to realise, oh, actually, we haven't got that data yet, but we should start getting it because then we can do these things with the dashboards. So I think, there's that element of having something and showing it to people and generating some excitement so they can start thinking about what they do with it. The other alternative, which I guess is a bit more old-worldy now, is that you have kind of data analysts whose job it is to sift through the data and so on. But I think the trouble with that approach is that they reach a point, they're asked to produce me a report on such and such or provide some statistics on this and that. So they do that and then it ends. But the beauty of data analytics, and if you've got a good tool which people can use, is that you can keep exploring. And so if we had tools like that project teams could use, they wouldn't just stop when they thought they'd got what they originally were looking for. They'd keep looking, and that's really the beauty of data analytics and good dashboarding tools.
Yeah, I suppose I can probably build on that a little bit more. We've recently gone through quite an exercise in looking at being a project-led organisation. So obviously all the money making is actually happening on the project, not at the executive team, but all the people sitting in the head office. So one of the big onerous aspects that we still put onto our project teams is all around that reporting structure. So, and the reports always end up being around gathering information and pushing that up to the people that are asking for it, with no real thought about the where's and why's and what's the reason behind this, other than the fact that we need to provide a report. So we've gone through a whole process of digging into the business and saying, right, okay, well, we need to report. What are we reporting on? Do we understand why we're actually having those metrics and actually creating analytics around those? And therefore, is this of value both to the organisation and to the project? From there, we can actually refine, and we got rid of a lot of waste and a lot of reports that are going in there. And then we started looking at the ways in which the data is being gathered, and predominantly up to now, it's been a very manual process. It will take anything up to 3 to 4 days per month for the project team to actually pull all the information together, regurgitate it, transform it, put it into a spreadsheet or a graphical format that we actually, as executives, want to see. And it goes from there, and it's just a lot of waste that was going in there. So we went into a great length to actually turn around and say, well, where's the interoperability? Where can we pull this information automatically and actually get more live information? And that's when we started looking at information not becoming an end-of-month lab report. Actually, we're getting live data, constantly streaming that data into and updating these dashboards on either a 5-hourly cycle or a daily cycle, depending on the metric we're pulling and how we're putting that information in. And therefore, that information, that reporting structure becomes far more used to our site teams. They can see the health of their project and the KPIs that they're actually reporting on a more regular basis, and they can respond appropriately. It's more about having the right information at the right time to make the right decisions, and that's kind of like the mantra that we've been going forward. So in terms of data analytics and the value to the business, and that's where it comes from, I think it's just making it available and getting it to a point they can make use of it. On a monthly cycle, it's a lag, and all it is reporting on what's happened before. You're not looking forward. So we're turning our reporting structure from a backwards-looking kind of function to a forward-looking function. And we're on that journey at the moment to actually start pushing that information in that direction.
I might just add to that. I completely agree with what's been said by both Phil and Craig in that there's this, people need a bigger purpose as well. They need to understand why they do something. It's been touched on before, the Simon Sinek model around understanding why we do things. And people understand why the integrity of this data is so important in the first instance, in how it's inputted, that it's put in the right place, it's actually allocated correctly, it's against the right cost codes, all that sort of stuff. It's the old adage of garbage in, garbage out. The stuff that comes out the tail end of that, as far as reporting, understanding where we're going, where we've been, is a lot more valuable. Add to that this whole concept that you can, as Craig was saying, you can move into that further into the environment of using lead indicators around human behaviours. I mean, there's a direct correlation established between the number of safety incidents on site and the lack or the drop-off of site safety inspections, albeit by site teams or by leaders themselves. These human sort of elements as well that come in that aren't hard and fast data sets. I think they call them outliers or something like that. And Malcolm Gladwell touched on it as well in that whole theory around plane crashes in Korea. And it wasn't just down to one event. It was a series of events that came together to form what the catastrophe was in that instance, but on a site level, to identify what those parameters may well be early on, so you can actually have intervention as opposed to any other position where you would literally become reactive. It makes you more proactive. So I think that we can move more towards lead, as Craig's been talking about, and there's some exciting stuff happening in that space.
Thanks. I'll just add 3 quick points to it because it's all absolutely makes sense. The first thing is we start talking about self-service analytics, meaning we are empowering the front line, the people in the field to start making decisions. The user interface becomes very important. So, it's important to try and consider having a similar interface. It doesn't matter whether you're using the system in the office, on a mobile device, or in a field office. So that becomes quite important. The user interface is very important. The second point is this concept of allowing people to model. So giving them the ability to go, gee, what if we did this? What if that happened? something has just happened, I want to see if I could do it in real time. So the ability to empower people, again, typically out remote, with a data set that is real time, in an environment that they feel comfortable with, not Excel. And then they can do their modeling, so they come up with some ideas. And the third is really the future. There is no doubt that we're going to see more and more of this analytics built into the application, taking away a lot of the human interface, so the human will do a lot more high-value activity. But some of these decisions we're making today, or our people are making in the field, will be automated. Bots will be taking over. They'll be cognitive. This is not a fear thing. This is actually to be embraced. But these are the things we'll be seeing from a user aspect.
Thanks, Alex. One aspect of data analytics I just want to pick up on, and I'm particularly interested in, or I might pose this to maybe Jeremy and Phil, just to get two different perspectives, is the area of benchmarking. So one of the themes that we talk about a lot is, okay, so people who've been on projects for many, many years have that sort of sixth sense, that intuition about projects that are going right or going wrong, and how do we take some of that data and put it in the hands of more or sort of newer members of staff so that they can take the benefit of data to make that sort of guide. Now, my sense is benchmarking is often construed as quite a negative term, maybe sort of a bit brother-esque, trying to catch people out or find out who's maybe performing not as well as the business standard. So I'm interested in your perspectives, both on how benchmarking is perceived and what might be done to change that.
Yeah, look, I think benchmarking, if it's done right, is a very valuable tool. You have to empower the sites to own it though. Once cost reporting and benchmarking, that sort of stuff becomes almost a fact-finding or a busting mission to get people in trouble in relation to the way things have transpired, it loses its empowerment. You can empower the sites to own the presentation of the benchmarking or the cost reporting. Further to that, once they see the value in owning it, and it's not just a tick box exercise, they then understand that it is for the benefit of the site teams as opposed to being a necessary reportable for corporate structure. You look at things like cash flows, even cash flows, project cash flows have become more intuitive as far as tying those in programs and correlating numbers of people on site performing activities versus what a cash flow would say. Cross-benchmarking certain tools as well and convincing the sites that the benefit is not, that there is a benefit in actually using a tool as opposed to it being something that's forced upon you by corporate structure just for the purposes of ticking boxes.
I think benchmarking, can either be seen as a carrot or a stick, and most project teams will want to strive to do the best that they can, and it's in people's nature to be competitive and to win. And if you've got benchmarks, you can see how you're going against that. So I don't see it as a negative thing. I don't think it's something that people should be afraid of. But where we are at the moment, I think in construction, there's this thing about we spend less than 1% of revenue on technology. Therefore, we don't have a lot of data. And to have benchmarks, you need to have data sitting behind it. So I think a lot of organisations are not really ready for benchmarking yet because we've got to spend a while, a few years, building up all that data to understand what's a good measure and what's a bad measure. So that for me, the focus isn't on benchmarking, it's about how do we start collecting data and starting to build data that we can create benchmarks from and then start measuring people. But you see it's a little bit further down the line, putting the cart before the horse.
So Kerry, question for you. I'd be interested in your opinions around maybe some of the challenges that exist with compiling data from different sources, different formats, different sets, and starting to aggregate, picking up on Phil's point. And maybe also just elaborating on, you mentioned you've been doing the work in the HR space and now having seen the benefits, you're thinking about the next horizons, maybe touching on what those might be.
So definitely for us, it's data quality. People putting the information in and inconsistencies in that data, and that often only comes to fruition when you build these cubes and you see different regions reporting in different ways, and there's also for us different regions using systems in different ways. So we've got some people in the West who use product A to report on a certain thing for quality, whereas people in on the East Coast are using a different product. So we've got to standardise what those systems are first, so then we can compare equally across all of those different platforms. So the data quality will certainly be one of the bigger ones, and we have worked to correct that, sometimes straight into the warehouse, but then make sure we go back to training people why it's important and what the impact is for them to do that. I can't remember what the second part of the question
Yeah,
was.
so that's fine. The second point was you mentioned you presented to the board around the benefits that you're realising, you know, in sort of emissions and so on in those areas, and you're now turning your attention to other areas, maybe around projects where you might be able to deploy analytics and reduce the amount of use. If you could elaborate on what those might be.
So we've been trying to work to integrate a lot of systems to make sure we've got APIs, and like I say, making sure that we're using the same products and systems across the country to measure those different areas. We're hoping moving forwards, we haven't necessarily got a plan yet for where we're going, but we will be working with the projects a lot more in these spaces. One of the areas that we can see we can certainly improve, because we've got so many people wanting different dashboards and reports now. We're hoping to use Power BI, build cubes for different departments and let them go and use those cubes themselves, and then hopefully that will allow us to develop further into these areas, or looking at predictive trends ourselves to see, we think this project might go wrong because they've got a very high turnover of staff, or the weather's really bad, and this is what the impact might be. So that's what we're hoping with the board's funding, potentially to spend some more time in that area.
Great, thanks.
With this question about data quality and capturing data, I think there's a couple of really important things here that are absolutely fundamental. So the chap from CIMIC this morning talked about APIs and how important it was, and I think we can't underestimate that. And so in the technology space in construction, there's lots of fantastic solutions which are point solutions and built with best intentions, but as buyers of that technology, we need to say, we believe we deserve enterprise-grade solutions. And so that's why things like APIs are so important, because if there are no APIs, there's no way of getting that data out or making sense of it in a wider context. So, I'm sort of giving a little bit of a message here to technology vendors that don't underestimate the importance of APIs, because it is absolutely crucial. And then I think the other thing is, we've talked about back office, they're all generating data because that's what you do in the back office, but the guys on the site don't. And so the importance of the user interface for the guys on site is absolutely paramount. And in my experience, project teams tend to sort of run as their own little business unit, and you can say to them, we're going to use this software on your project, and they'll say, okay, I'll do that, and as soon as you're gone, they're not, because it's not easy to use. So unless it's really, really easy to use and it just slips into their daily routine, they're not going to use the technology, and we're not going to generate the data.
Thanks, Phil. Craig, you mentioned before, it sounds like at Hawkins you're well down the track in terms of the journey. I'd be keen on your comments from a couple of terms of both APIs and data quality, and also maybe if you could expand on your learnings from the human element of adoption of that technology.
I'll start off with the interoperability part of that question. So the various different systems that we use, there's always that utopia of having a single system which is going to collect all that data from all the different data streams. And to be realistic, that is a utopia. That is something that we all strive to get to, but the reality is we're always going to have multiple systems. So the interoperability, the APIs, the connected data streams is going to be one of the biggest learnings that we had. To move us into this whole reporting strategy and collecting the information, we have a long time with all the different platforms that we used, and our primary goal was to see whether we can actually automatically pull that information rather than relying on our end users to actually gather that information and put it in. And to be honest, the journey that we've been on is very much down that road of maintaining that interoperability, and that's one of the key words around it all, is that we have to have systems that can talk to one another, and actually it's like comparing apples with apples rather than apples with oranges, and connect those dots, which I spoke about earlier on. Our biggest weakness, and I'm I'm nervous in saying this because it might be construed in a way. Our biggest weakness in terms of data is actually our people, because they can input the data in various different ways. Consistency becomes an issue, data validity becomes an issue, the quality of the information that comes in is varied, and therefore as a data analyst or someone when we're actually creating this lake of information, that becomes a huge issue because we've got too much variance in the information that we're gathering, so it becomes a strong weakness. One of the biggest areas of instability that we've found in our journey for this reporting is always been around the information that we're gathering is relying on things like spreadsheets or a little bit of a platform or a template that we're using where people are inputting their own data in the back end and then using and manually pushing that into a spreadsheet that we can push into the data warehouse. There's all sorts of different wonderful things and issues that come up from people that then have the opportunity to change the templates that we use because it's not the way they constantly operate. They can do it better. And all fairness to them, they might be able to do it better in those sort of ways. We don't ignore that fact. But the problem is with a system such as this, it relies on some form of structure. And although we try and keep it fluid and dynamic, that structure has to be there to create a valid data source. So that's definitely one of the issues that we're going through. And one of the next steps is what we've got is actually working around that stability to start using things like Power Apps. And if it has to be a data source from the end user, then look at ways in which you can control the way that information is put in. If you don't do that, then, like I say, you start coming across all these various different issues in terms of dirty data that's coming into the warehouse, and that can skew your analytics and skew information that's coming forward.
That's good. Hi. And perhaps, in addition to what you're saying, if you could elaborate maybe just on that human element on adoption as well.
Sure. I think what's been described is exactly the issue around data. And so the data governance is something an organisation really has got to get its head around. It doesn't have to be a complex concept, but the definitions of what the data is, so we can try and avoid these issues. And we've seen many times in our projects where within an organisation, two divisions measure gross profit differently. And you think that surely gross profit is a simple way to calculate, but it's not. So when two divisional managers will go to a meeting and they're both talking about gross profit, it's misleading. So data governance will take care of a lot of that. This dirty data is a problem, that's coming in. You don't want to discourage it, but you've got to try and find a way to ring fence it. And I think the other thing we're seeing a lot of is these great visualization tools now. So I've heard Power BI, there's Tableau, there's many of these fantastic tools. And so then you get into the world of, I want it pretty versus I want it right. So people come in through pretty reports, but the data underneath them is skeptical. You don't trust it. So again, we've got to be careful about giving people the latitude to select a tool they want and build a very flashy dashboard, but the content, the actual data which they're talking about could be wrong. So it causes a lot of uneasiness in decision making, and we go back to gut. We won't make a decision based on gut.
Thanks, Alex. Craig, just before you come back to that, I might just give, just bearing in mind time, just give some time for audience questions. So I think we've got a microphone somewhere there. So just in terms of questions, if you could just raise your hand and we'll get a mic over to you. And if you could just stand up, just give your name and where you're from. Yes, I'll say that after you put your hand up. And that'd be great.
Hi, sorry, I'm a bit nervous. I'm not a public speaker. I'm a completions manager on a project, so my role is data governance, being able to hand over the project, get that, make sure the information is correct. But I'm not the process owner in a lot of these where you actually get that information from. So I'm just wondering, have you got strategies to go back to the process owners to drive them to understand that that data is used for different functionalities and how they can improve their processes and make the users understand what they're putting out, because that's the biggest issue.
Thanks.
I'll speak to that one if you don't mind. One of the biggest areas that we did, one of our journey points as well was, and it continues moving forward, is actually understanding the user stories. We use, I was introduced to the agile approach about 12 months ago in terms of something that we don't typically do in construction, which is that whole agile, using sprints, using the whole analogy around working and making change in the business. And process becomes quite a rigid kind of structure that doesn't seem to be able to be changed very easily. But it can if we can actually turn it around and actually understand what the user story is all about and actually understand where that pain point is. And that's where you get to the point where you can identify the ways to identify the areas that we're doing stuff in ways that just doesn't make sense. And then once we've got the user stories in place, we can then go back into the business and actually start making policy changes or process changes that are required around that. But I suppose the biggest part and the biggest message around that, and the one that you were touching on as well, is how do we get the visibility on it? How do we get that feedback back into the business and around that, and create a structure whereby people can give us their end user stories and allow us to pick it apart, ask the questions, and actually see where the change can eventuate from, and then we can start pushing that in place. One of the biggest things we had quite a rigid policy process and processes in place that created our blueprint for our business. We're slowly, and it's a bit of a juggernaut to make the change, but we're slowly moving away from that process-driven environment to actually guidance. And so we can open up and create the innovation and create areas of change in the business itself as well. So we're listening to the end user, but the biggest barrier is creating that channel of communication. And if you can get that user story sorted out and actually find ways of actually channeling that user story to the right areas of the business, then you'll start seeing that change and that wheel of change starting to get some motion.
That's great. Any questions? The gentleman in the grey suit.
I've already got the mic.
Sorry.
Thanks. I'm Jessica, I'm co-founder of Neighbourhoods, which is social data for neighbourhoods. And my question actually relates to your recent comment now about being agile and being user-focused. I'm interested to know you as leaders in your organisation doing really cool stuff. What role, if any, do you think startups should play in this? And have you experienced working alongside startups who can perhaps be more agile and nimble in their approach and more user-centric versus in-house R&D?
I'm hogging the mic.
I don't think there's any, this or that answer to that. So, for example, in our organisation, we've been doing some agile development of our own, and with some sort of various development teams. But we're also working with startups as well, and helping them develop their product as they understand our business. It helps them improve their product. So, and also, there's a lot of talk now about incubators, and especially in fintech, that's been shown to be very successful, where you've got these incubator buildings with lots of financial startups in there, and they've got close access to people from the financial industry, and it's a good symbiotic relationship. They learn what the processes should be, and then they develop good software which you can use. And I think that we're going to see more of that in the construction space. And there was, I can't remember who it was, but there was an announcement a week or two ago, I think, about a new construction incubator starting up somewhere. So I don't think, I think yes, we should be working with startups, and those incubator environments are a good way of doing that.
Thanks, Phil. The gentleman in the grey suit.
Dan Redfrey, John Holland, I'm the Global Supply Chain Manager. My question is around understanding data in its context. So are we talking about more profitable projects versus more profitable company? And I wanted to link a few of your key comments there together. So Phil was talking about fun ways to capture data. Craig, project-led organisations, that's typically what we work in. And Jeremy, the reasons why we're doing things. And the last comment was really about moving towards self-service models. The question here is, are we giving the 5-year-old the gun here? And how do we use data responsibly to make sure that the projects don't do something to benefit them and it's detrimental to the overall business?
Jeremy, do you want to call out?
Yeah, I can certainly start there, and I think it's a really good question because, the 5-year-old kid with the gun, certainly we don't see that. I think it goes back to a couple of things, particularly the culture with an organisation, and I think an organisation starts the journey down data analytics. It also needs to recognise that things are going to change. With that comes a high degree of visibility into what's happening in the business. A lot of people are uncomfortable with that, so we've got to start dealing with that. But I think to avoid an outcome that is just not acceptable or has come as a surprise, it needs to be very systemic or systematic approach. So what are the business imperatives? Our guidance is start small, start with a very clear idea of how this will relate to a business imperative in the business, and try and choose a small one as well. Because if we can show quick wins in these environments, they often become a proof of concept or a business case for another iteration of this. We certainly we discourage the big bang approach, because I think this is where we have this concept of we spend months, years on projects and nothing comes of that. So it's that we just need to know the end, we have the end in mind, what we want to achieve, go back to the beginning and keep it small and fast.
Thanks, Alec. Look, it's obviously a very broad topic, a topic that's difficult to wrap up in 40 minutes. I think, so touching on the point you made, Phil, just around the like incubators, startups, bringing the construction and the technology world together. I think that's really important. It's one of the great things about this summit is just giving the opportunity for both sides of the industry, the service industry, to talk together and understand the requirements and the needs of one another, whether it be from a human and a technological point of view. So, but thanks to our panellists. It's been a really lively debate, and thanks to your questions.